Adesh, Namaskaram
Pradesh, namaskaram.
to you, lovely people, once again. And this time around, this became like a tradition with my brother, min bro, and mi hermano, and merabai, and so on and so forth. Visti G, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I am enjoying the change of the very, very cold weather here in Denmark, where I am. And it's nice and icy outside. I'm hoping it'll be skating weather in a few weeks. We'll see in February. Yes. And how is Serbia treating you?
Here is fine,
Hmm.
apart from the worst possible air quality that you can find in the world, but everything else is exceptional.
Belgrade is
But
specific for that. Other parts of Serbia are quite fantastic.
yeah, it can be. It can
Mhm.
be. The capital is it can be gross from time to time.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, I mentioned the quality, and it is health concerning. And we are speaking. Actually, you are speaking this time around about the health. So, what do you have in mind? You can start free.
And the topic of health is a very, very big topic in Jyotish. It's very big for good reason. And that's not exclusive to Jyotish, as we know, because you go back a few hundred years, and the only way to learn about health is to learn astrology. Mhm. Even the great Copernicus, I have repeated his example many times, is noted for having to go to medical school in Pisa in Italy, where he would study Jyotish. All right, or in those days, tropical astrology, we'd say.
Yeah.
So Jyotish and health has been a very integrated subject. Even when we speak of the father of medicine, Hippocrates is noted for speaking in detail about chart placements, house placements, vis-a-vis the health. So so we owe a lot to astrology from the perspective of health. And one could argue that when it comes to medicine, it would be better to rely on the empirical sciences that are available to us today, which is most prominently a form of allopathic medicine. And the only complaint I would voice for Jyotish today vis-a-vis medicine is that the amount of skill people appropriate and beget in this area is quite limited. So
Indeed.
astrologers are limited by how much time they have spent studying and begetting some proficiency in this subject. And trust that there are astrologers out there who have a very high level of proficiency when it comes to studying health, very, very high. But they are also very few. And
Mm.
their schools are also not very prominent. And there's also a little bit of secrecy involved in that. And this could have been different if when India begot its independence from the British, that they continued to support the various Vedic schools which were there. Prominent examples we know are from Karnataka in Mysore, where you would to study the Vedic sciences, you would go there, at least if you're living in Karnataka, to study among the best within all realms of yoga, health, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So there is a level of proficiency which is lacking, but the knowledge is there. Okay, and when we enter into the subject properly to understand why the proficiency is lacking, it'll become obvious because the subject is also huge within Jyotish. The number of things we have as portfolios to examine health are quite large. The number of shlokas and sutras dedicated to the subject are also very vast in number. Jaimini has spent enormous amount of sections of his Jaimini sutras on the topic of health and death, both. Mhm. It
Mm.
is that one repeating subject throughout the sutras, which is on almost every chapter. Almost every chapter has a reference to the topic of health in some form or the other. So this is a big subject, and so what I present today will be one subset of it, a very useful, practical one, but one subset of it. one which has not been spoken so much of and is quite in line with your recent concerns about air quality. All right. But before we enter into that, given that this is still a subject which is lacking the level of mastery today, obviously, if anybody learns this subject, please make sure that you do not tell people to stay away from their allopathic doctor. They spend, what, 5 to 7 years be getting that proficiency in medicine and doing it daily, let I say 5 days a week, every week of the year and for 5 years. And if you do that with Jyotish in medicine, you will become that good. All right? You will become that good. Obviously, you are better off having an allopathic background or Ayurvedic background and then studying medical Jyotish. But it'll take you maybe as long to master it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, so that was my preliminary on this subject, as in how we're going to what is the background of this, and then entering into the subject in more detail. I want to give our first proper reference, Parashara. Parashara Swara Shastra has at least 2 chapters committed to an aspect of health, maybe even 3, I want to say 3 to 4 chapters, depending on how you read the Parashara, okay?
Yep.
Of which only 1 is committed to the topic of health, which is the 6th house chapter. That's the only chapter which is absolutely committed to Roga. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the untrained eye will read that chapter and think that Parashara gives everything about health in that chapter. But he actually, and they will also think reading it that he gives 1 method, and that's it. And they will also think that basis that Parashara means to say that only the 6th house shows health. Okay. That's for the untrained eye, the beginner's eye. The one who learns from a tradition will know that 6th house chapter has 2 to 3 methods of examining health. Not 1, but 2 to 3. I say the 3rd because there's an overlap that arrives in there. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's a very useful method, but it's just 1, really, or 2 of the real methods to examine body parts distinctly. And it is this topic, body parts, limbs, which is the most complicated aspect of Jyotish. This is the complicated one. If you ask me where to see illness, that's not hard. 6th house can also be 8th house. I might add 1 more house in a minute. Mm-hmm. Some people say Lagna, kind of. Okay, kind of. I'll explain the differences. But when you use a certain house to see the person's health, the body part references also change. And that's not really taught in public. Okay? Because the reason for the health problem is also changing. And so the body part, way of finding the body part also changes. Okay? Now, if one says, oh, but Parashara in his 6th house chapter doesn't really teach body parts, he teaches organ functions. It's true. He relies a lot on organ function in that 6th house chapter. But if you look at this chapter on the 1st house, he gives the body parts basis the Drekana.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody will say that's only for the 1st house. And say, no, that's actually for all the houses.
Bhavas, yeah.
Yeah, all the roga, all the form options of roga, disease, can use that Drekana method. Some people will say, no, it's only for seeing birthmarks, the Drekana. You can use it for that. But if you use it for disease, you can also use it for that. So it's used for both. It has both impacts. Okay. Then some people will say, but how about houses alone, not Drekana, for body parts? That's another scheme. In fact, that scheme is actually based more on function of body parts, and more appropriately, there should be a use of signs to see body parts. Aries is the head, Taurus is the face, Gemini is the arms, Cancer is the chest, Leo is the stomach, Virgo is supposed to be the lower abdomen, all right? Libra is the genitals, Scorpio is the hidden part of the genitals, as well as the anus, okay? The hidden part. Yeah. So Libra is visible, Scorpio is invisible.
Guhya.
Guhya, hidden, okay? For a man, that means the penis is visible, but the testes are hidden. So that we differentiate between the two. All right? Sagittarius is supposed to be the thighs, Capricorn the knees, Aquarius the shins, and Pisces are the feet. You cannot use that scheme for the sixth house. That's why there's a difference.
Okay.
Okay? You can't use it for the sixth house. That scheme is used for the eighth house only. So the scheme of the signs is used for the eighth house. But the scheme of the houses, I was taught specifically Drekana, is used for the sixth house. Why is that? Because they're the two different reasons for health problems. The sixth house is causing problems due to your own problem, what we call ripu, your own weakness. It's a weakness. And that weakness or ripu is seen from your own houses. Okay? They're not seen from God's houses. God's houses are from Aries. Your houses are from Lagna. Because the sixth house shows your own problem, the disease will be in your own houses, which are the houses from Lagna, but distinctly Trekana. Okay?
Yeah.
Now that's sensible, right? Now it makes sense.
Completely.
Now there's that other scheme. The eighth house is showing issues that you have done to others, done to the world. So because you did something to the world, the signs are supposed to be houses of the world, where the Aries is the world Lagna, Taurus is the world second house. All right? So if the eighth lord is in a specific sign, it'll cause an illness in that sign. Whereas the sixth house is in a house, it'll cause an illness in the house. There's a big difference between the two. Okay? And this is just two schemes. In the sixth house chapter, Parashara gives another scheme. And that actually two schemes. Parashara gives two schemes in the sixth house chapter, which are about organ function, not about limbs. Because somebody will say, but Visti, what if it's a person has AIDS? AIDS is a blood disease, like leukemia, leukemia, cancer leukemia is also a blood disease. It affects the whole body, not just one organ. Yep. So Parashara has to explain, but there are also organ issues. There can be organ diseases. So he has another scheme for that. And that scheme is applied to when a planet is in the sixth house, not necessarily join the sixth lord.
Right.
That sixth house chapter is also one of the first chapters where Parashara talks about timing events. So you can imagine the first time Parashara takes timing events seriously, he's talking about illness. First time. And he depicts that in the first time he starts timing events, he starts with, and if this yoga is there, the disease will be throughout life. Why is he trying to say? It doesn't matter what other things I will speak about after this. If you have disease that affects you from beginning of life till end of life, it's going to affect every aspect of prediction after that. Okay? So he starts with that. Now, I would be wrong to say this is the first time he speaks about timing events, because then before this, he gives only one shloka about timing events in the chapter on body marks, just one. And he says, if the certain yoga is there, the body mark will show up at the age of 12. Then he says no more about timing events after that. He gives one small reference to the age of Saturn in the third chapter. That's about it. Saturn is the oldest. Then in the chapter on body marks, he says 12 years of age, a certain body mark, let's say a beauty spot or similar will show up. After that, he doesn't talk about timing until he reaches the sixth house chapter. And then he goes all in. Several shlokas on timing events. Very detailed shlokas. So the structure of Parashara also has a logic to it. There's something about it as to relevance of timing events in this. And that's why astrologers spend a lot of time also trying to time problems, because that is what Parashara wants us to do first. So this topic of health again becomes relevant therein.
Okay.
Now, in this, I'm trying to explain then I said there are two schemes of body parts. Then I mentioned Parashara has given a method of function, organ function, less body part, but more function. We also have Jaimini focusing a lot on organ function and by using houses from the moon to see body parts. But this is very focused on function. And they're different. The houses from the moon are different from the houses from Lagna. They're very, very different. For example, from the moon, the 6th house is the genitals. Okay. The 7th house is the back. Strange, right? And that back, that spine goes from the 7th all the way to the Lagna. And the reason for that is because there's two things to see here. One is illness or function, but another is to see Kundalini, which goes from the top to the bottom of the spine. So Jaimini is trying to show us where the Kundalini starts in the 7th house and ends in the 1st house from the moon. Okay? So there's actually a function of spirituality in that, but you can also see health from there. You can also. He says the 9th house rules the entire legs. 10th house is sight, not eyes. Not eyes. The eyeball may be fine, but the sight may be lacking. 10th house is the sight, he says, from the moon. 11th is the function of hearing, not the ears. 12th house, the function of smell. So there is a very different way that Jaimini gets into the topic of body parts. And this is a supplement to Parashara. It's a supplement. So that's about 3 to 4 schemes I've now added. Okay, you can see this is growing. People say, no wonder there's so many shlokas on this. 4 schemes of organs. And with this, I would like to initiate or talk about another scheme of body parts, which trumps all of them if it exists, which I would like to give a focus on first.